Episode 28 with Aishwarya Krishna Priya. Suman versus human.
Stop using free email. Businesses like yours need reliable email provider. Connect your business with Google and add value to your online presence. Sign up with Google Workspace today. Use the link in the description to avail 10% special discount on your first year subscription.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to the new episode of Suman versus Human. Hope you had a great weekend. On this episode, I have a special guest. She is Aishwarya Krishna Priya. Aishwarya is a singer, filmmaker, and a psychologist. She is the founder of ACRO. So let's know more about ACRO and let's dig deep into the history of psychology. Let's welcome Aishwarya Krishna Priya. Aishwarya, welcome to Suman versus Human.
Thank you so much, Suman Karu. I really appreciate the, warm welcome. And hi to all the listeners. I'm Aishwarya Krishna Priya. I'm the founder of ACRO Mental Health and Wellness. And I would be happy to, answer any questions that Suman Karu has for me today.
Aishwarya, I mentioned history of psychology. There is a reason behind. I said history because I really have no idea how this word psychology came into existence. We know about psychiatry. I want to know the main difference between psychiatry and psychology.
Okay. So when it comes to psychology is derived from two Greek words. So it's psych and logos. So psych meaning soul and logos meaning to study. So back in the day or before psychology was considered a scientific study, it was mainly or rather the philosophers back in the day, they considered it a field of study for the soul, which later, became an art form is what some people say. Some people say it just ended up being a more scientific approach to human behavior or studying human behavior. And some of the notable names, or rather say there was one pivotal figure in the history of psychology who was named Wilhelm Wundt, often regarded as the father of psychology or modern psychology. And he established the first laboratory in Leipzig, Germany back in the 1800s. I think I would say probably 1870, I don't remember, 1878 or 1879, if I'm not wrong. This was something that I had studied back when I was a student of psychology in the 11th grade. So that was probably the time which we can say that marked the formal beginning of psychology as an independent scientific discipline. But before that, it was more on the lines of philosophy and biology, which it still is. Because when I was still studying, that's when they said that, psychology right now is derived from two different fields, that is philosophy, and the second being biology, considering we study genetics in this particular field, not to the extent that, other scientists study, but from a surface level, we definitely study human behavior from a genetic perspective.
How do you define psychiatry?
Okay. So it's very simple. I'll try to simplify it as much as I can. So psychiatry or psychology, they're two different fields, distinct fields. A psychiatrist mainly is an MBBS doctor a medical doctor with an MBBS degree and an MD or a specialization in psychiatry. And later they go on to do other specializations and they get into diploma programs or a master's in counseling psychology. So a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who's licensed and who is allowed to practice and prescribe medication. I hope I made that clear. But,
Yes.
yeah. Now, whereas when it comes to a psychologist will typically have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in psychology, be it an honors course or somebody who has studied psychology as one of their major subjects their bachelor's, and then they go on to do a specialization in their master's. So a psychologist will typically have a BA and an MA, BA, BSc, sorry, MA or MSc, and they go on to do PhD in other countries. In our country, those who want to again have another specialization in clinical psychology, they do an extra degree known as the MPhil in clinical psychology, which is only recognized by the Rehabilitation Council of India, which is again a 2 years of study that you have to, complete in order to gain a license as an individual.
So primarily your business is counseling. That is what I understand.
Yes, our business is counseling.
There are many mental conditions which can be easily solved through counseling, right?
Yes.
Now, let's say Suman. Suman is going through serious depression. Okay, depression of any kind. Now, Suman is always confused because I don't know to approach a psychiatrist or I don't know to get an appointment from a psychologist. Now, how do you avoid such confusion when people like Suman encounter?
Before I answer this question, I would just like to rephrase it to again, get back to the question. Now, when you talk about depression, it's actually a technical word that we use. So rather, until and unless you're not diagnosed with depression, it's always ideal not to use the word, even in everyday usage. That's one thing. The second thing is when you feel that you're having episodes of depression, or if you feel upset, or if you've had prolonged periods of low mood swings for at least a minimum of say 2 weeks to 3 weeks, you must first see. Usually in India, what happens is whenever you feel low, the first approach is not to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. The first approach is to always go to an astrologer. So if your work is getting done by going to an astrologer, you go
Yeah.
there, is what I would say. I'm not bothered about the people who want to go to an astrologer because I can't be mean to them. It's their
Yeah.
life, it's their business as well.
Yes.
So they will say Grahan, they will say Sankat, they will say, Lagan Patrika, they will say all kinds of technical words that they use
Yes.
of astrology, and they will probably confuse you even more, stating that, you have some Grahapida, you have some other issues or some ancestral karmic reactions of the actions that you and your forefathers have done. So all of that will come into picture. Those who believe in it should definitely go for it and try to get themselves sorted in their lives. But those who do not believe, this is for those who do not believe in taking up these practices which are already there. I would personally advise them, or rather suggest them, to do the following. So this may take a minute or two for me to explain, but I hope
Please,
that's
please,
okay.
you are at your
Okay.
liberty. Time is yours.
Okay. So usually what happens is, now for instance, coming back to your question, when you say that if you are having episodes of depression, if you are feeling low and upset about something, how do I go approach a mental health service provider? Is that correct?
No. My
Why?
question is, I'm
Huh.
often confused. Like, whom should
To
I
to
meet?
who to
Psychiatrist
choose?
or
Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Who to choose? Okay.
Yeah.
Before diagnosis, I would obviously, recommend you or the concerned person to first go talk to a trusted person, be it in their family or their friends. Once you do that, what happens is there is somebody at the, to support you and what's going on in your life. Now, second thing is when you approach a mental health service provider, the first and foremost, what do you call it? The idea of psychology or psychiatry comes to many people through watching different movies from different cultures. So there's a certain fear that people have. So for a certain section of the population, they'll be more comfortable going to a psychiatrist who's a medical doctor. Some people would not want to go to a psychiatrist because they fear that, they will be prescribed medication, which is also again correct and which is completely jayaz. That's what we say in Hindi, right?
Yes.
So, Hindi, Urdu. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
So, when it comes to a certain section of the people, they would be more comfortable going and talking to a person rather than getting treated medically. So though that section of people would go to a psychologist. So I can't generalize saying who would they choose or how should you choose, because if it is left to me or if it is left to me to give you a suggestion, I would first say go talk to a trusted person. If that doesn't work, then you go to either a psychiatrist or a psychologist depending on your choice. Now when you go to a psychiatrist, I'll give you this information as well.
Yeah.
When you go to a psychiatrist, they will medically diagnose you with all the concerns that you have, and then later they will prescribe certain tests for you. These are known as psychometric tests. Now, psychometric tests are conducted only by two forms of people. One is a clinical psychologist who is an RCI licensed individual professional. The second is a psychometrician who can be licensed or qualified in that particular field from any part of the world or any other licensing body which I am unaware of. So I won't dwell into that too much. But if you go to a psychiatrist, this is how it goes. And beyond the testing, depending on the situation and the severity of the case, they will either be signposted back to the psychiatrist, or they will be signposted to the clinical psychologist in charge, or they will again go to a counseling psychologist, depending on the case. Now, when you decide on taking up a counseling psychologist, for instance, or a clinical psychologist, it's a similar road that you will probably encounter, because if you go to a clinical psychologist directly, they will probably administer a few tests. Unless it's not required, they will not do it. But they may recommend you to take a personality assessment or two and a few rating scale tests and other tests. Along with that, depending on the results of your particular case, they will suggest you to go to a counseling psychologist, or they take it up themselves. The idea over here is not that these guys are making money on you. The point is to look for the best possible treatment for you.
Yeah.
So now, even if you have to get diagnosed with depression, a clinical psychologist will be involved. At some point or the other, maybe a psychiatric consultation may be required. And on a regular basis, you might require a counseling psychologist who would be there to help you navigate your problem.
I heard from many people, I have seen many experiences in my life that I may be wrong. I'm not judging anyone and I'm not passing any blanket statements, but most of the psychiatricians themselves are not outspoken. As a patient, when someone is already suffering depression, when someone goes to see a doctor to find some more cinematic counseling sessions, when someone approaches a psychiatrician, he or she themselves do not talk much. Okay, in that case, someone obviously would not solve his problem. People like Suman won't find counseling based psychiatricians in the country.
To answer your question, most psychiatrists do not have an additional degree of a psychological counseling diploma or a master's that they would pursue. Because they are medical doctors, you would know better about medical doctors than I would, but when you go to a doctor, they won't sit and give you counseling. It would probably be the nurse or a junior doctor who would probably give you the required counseling you need. So the idea of going to a doctor is to get a medicine or some treatment that they would offer you. So the concept of psychological counseling or psychoeducation comes in handy when they have an additional degree to it and they have the time to sit and talk these things out to you. So that's one thing for a psychiatrist. because most psychiatrists, they deal, when it comes to psychiatry in government facilities, they have to deal with at least 100 cases in an entire day. And this is
Yeah.
something that my uncle, who himself is a psychiatrist, used to tell me, that in his prime he used to deal with a lot of cases on a daily basis, and they didn't have the time to sit and counsel everybody. This is what their team members used to do. And sometimes, when the cases were less, they themselves used to go and do it. When it comes to a psychologist, the primary goal of a psychologist is to navigate the problems in such a way that they are not problems or hurdles for the client that they're dealing with. Now, to look at it from the third perspective, or like, giving it an additional information, I would say this: the reason why you might feel uncomfortable going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist is, one, we have stigma. And second, the thing is, there's lack of awareness. Third, because there is no concept of a referral business that comes in picture, you
Yeah.
will not know who to go and approach.
Yes.
That's where, now, for instance, say if we have, say, a pediatrician, or say a GP, or say an oncologist, just about 10 to 15 oncology was a taboo subject for many people.
Yeah.
And because the cases have increased, definitely the demand has increased, and that's why people are more open to talking about it. That she has something, why don't we go, talk to our family doctor who knows that oncologist. That's how the word spreads about one doctor who can be of help.
Yes.
So that happens. But when it comes to psychologists or psychiatrists, because these are very sensitive subjects or sensitive concerns that we deal with for every client, I wouldn't say that, you should, take the same road, you should do the same kind of treatment for everybody, because every case is unique by itself.
Mm. Yeah.
So what I would say is, when you approach any of these consultants, you must first, as a client, when you are, investing your time and your money into, a professional, I would request you all to read about them a little, because most websites, most search engines provide you information on the consultant, and probably a small photograph of theirs as well, along with their fees.
Unfortunately, today,
Yeah.
instead of reading about the consultant on Google, people are actually finding out diagnosis.
I mean, see, to be very honest, there were very days when, when we were students, it
Yeah.
used to happen, and everything boils down to it showing cancer.
Yeah.
I don't know if others have seen this happening, but I'm speaking through personal experience, that that's what you do, because, Google is, it may not necessarily be anonymous when it comes to your search. But any search engine, it's like, having a silent friend. You're asking a silent friend what to do, what not to do. But
Yes.
even if you say signs of depression, it will show you a list of suggestions. If you have some AI, an artificial intelligence tool involved, or you've just downloaded some tool of that sort, that will also show you the different suggestions. In the suggestions list also, it will say the forms of treatment, what should you do, what you shouldn't do, etc. Now you can find, I'm not saying that, you can't find cure treatment methods, you know uh, the incidence rate or the prevalence rate of certain disorders. What I'm saying is, now, for instance, I'll tell you, there are basic, concepts in counseling that we use.
Mm.
See, as simple as, journaling. We might ask you to journal. We might ask you to do deep breathing exercises. We might ask you to go for a walk. We might ask you to drink water on a regular basis. But it may not necessarily work out for everybody. So,
Yes.
journaling, so not many people would appreciate writing down their thoughts for XYZ reasons.
Yeah.
Not many people are used to drinking water, and some bodies are, not, produced in such a way that, they would require a lot of water, is what I understand. And there are many other things. Now, deep breathing exercises, some people may have sinus, they might not even want to do it.
Mm, mm.
So the idea is, even despite you seeing something online, now for instance, say over the counter medication is always available, but we don't take steroids, we don't take antibiotics just for the sake of, taking these pills. At the end of the day, despite you going and, checking everything on Google, you will go to a doctor at the end of the day, ask them for a prescription, and then you'll get the job done. Similarly, when you go into a session with a psychologist, you may probably know more than the psychologist. I'm not saying that you will not know. We don't necessarily have to psychoeducate you on your symptoms. But when you meet somebody, just be open to what they have to say. Now, for instance, if you genuinely want to explore the concept of journaling, but you don't want to or you haven't done it before, we first have to understand your mindset in order to even give you that little prompt or, suggest you a particular what do you call it, homework or suggestion that we give you. So it's completely based on the individual themselves, and finding the right psychologist is definitely very difficult in today's times.
Yeah.
But what I would tell people is that whenever you are on the lookout to look for the right psychologist or the right therapist, I would personally always suggest people to read about them and then go for it.
Okay, Aishwarya, now I will tell you few conditions. Okay, and I would expect your suggestions or advices on those, and I would expect you to touch those topic, superficially, so that my listeners get some idea on it.
Okay, sure.
As a common man, what we think is depression is commonly linked to sadness or feeling low, usually which occurs due to separation or due to absence of some of your near and dearest person, or due to financial problems, something like that. So how do you deal with depression, and what advice you have for us?
So, like I'd mentioned, depression is still a technical word that we use. Having stress is what one must consider telling them. I mean, telling people. Because stress in today's world, stress is the main cause or like an umbrella term that we can use to basically identify the problem areas and the triggers of a person. So, to answer the first part of your question, when it comes to depression, until and unless we are not diagnosed, we must consider not using the word saying, I am depressed. Rather, I would say, I am upset. I'm feeling a little low. I know they may sound very silly to a lot of people, but we don't go around saying things like, I have cancer, oh, hi, or tumor and all to people, right? So technically, we shouldn't be saying that to ourselves as well. That, oh my God, I have depression and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
And this is something that I, extensively written about when I was still in the UK, but that's a different topic altogether, which I may disclose in a different question. But when it comes to depression, it is also known as unipolar depression. It falls under mood disorders. So,
okay,
in mood disorders, you have unipolar depression and you have bipolar disorder.
okay.
So, in depression or unipolar depression, what usually happens is you have persistent feelings of sadness, you have low mood swings, if I have to say it in common or layman's language. You feel sad for a prolonged period of time. You feel hopeless. There is a loss of interest or pleasure in all forms of activities that you have. Everything seems grim, dark, and as if, the world has just, shut down in front of your eyes. When it comes to bipolar disorder, you'll have high mood swings and low mood swings.
Okay.
When it comes to low mood swings, like I'd mentioned, you have persistent feelings of sadness. And when it comes to say bipolar disorder, or having rather a manic episode, you will also have symptoms of mania. Now, when it comes to mania, you will have unreasonable euphoria, very intense moods, and hyperactivity is one of the major signs that one can see
Mm.
in mania, which is also again, connected to bipolar disorder.
How do you deal with it? Like, what should I do when I realize that
When
I'm
you
going
feel,
through depression?
see, ideally, in the most ideal situation, I would definitely ask or recommend people, or rather suggest people, to seek professional help in today's times.
Mm.
That is, reason being, one, if you see a professional, you will get a perspective to the problems that you have. Two, this can also go wrong if you actually see the wrong professional for your case.
Mm.
Now, one may be the best psychiatrist in the world, but he
Mm.
could probably pose, he could probably be toxic to some of his clients. We don't know. He could be the worst psychiatrist for them.
Yeah.
So it depends on a person, it depends on a person's preference. Now, for instance, like I'd mentioned earlier, like towards the beginning of the conversation, I said many people are reluctant to go to a mental health service provider, but they would rather go to a astrologer first.
Yes.
This being said, you know, at the back of everyone's mind, everyone wants to go see astrology because there's a certain mysticism involved in it.
Mm.
How the astrologer poses the information is completely their individual choice and up to them.
Mm.
Some people would genuinely give you like some information they won't give you. Some will give you, some won't give you. So in even in astrology, you take what you think is right and then you leave the rest. Similarly, even when it comes to a mental health service provider, you take what you think will work in your favor and you leave the rest. Some people, some clients tend to have a very negative sort of experience with therapists. Now, seeking a therapist is also a big challenge in a
Mm.
country like India or any country which has a very rich cultural heritage or history of traditions, etc. So, if it comes to the Indian South Asian population, I would first always recommend people to go talk to a loved one. This is the first line of defense one should use before approaching a mental health service provider. See, there are certain in psychiatric disorders, in mental health disorders, there are disorders where some are treatable, some are curable. Now, when it comes to curable, the concept of cure is not always 100% there because your symptoms will go under remission sometimes and they can just get triggered by anything.
Mm.
So if you come up with a holistic approach to concerns or disorders like depression, generalized anxiety disorder, mainly these two disorders, 90% of your problems go away if we take a holistic approach. Now, when it comes to you, when you have a problem, what is it that you should do is one, you first go figure out who is a trusted friend or a trusted family member. If that doesn't work out, then look for somebody you know, who is more qualified in that particular field who could help. For some people, in their first consultation, they don't get what they want and they will never go back to another professional. So it's very important for you to know what is it that the professional does, what is it that the professional does not do. So when you also approach a mental health service provider or just a professional, what I would genuinely recommend people to do is first read up about who we are, what we are, and what are our strengths and weaknesses as professionals, and then you book a session with us. Because if you don't feel comfortable coming to us, yet you're paying us, you will feel bad for paying us. You will also feel bad for, spending that kind of time,
Yes.
with somebody. So, especially in a country like India, some people go to family members, they go to friends, they go to their life partners, or they go to an astrologer or something else. And then the last resort is usually, a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I understand that. I acknowledge it. I also respect other people's approaches as well, because if it's working out in their favor, well and good. If things are not working out, that's when you should definitely consider professional help. If not, the 10 sessions that you have taken with one or two therapists or professionals, go look for the right person. And
Yeah.
finding the right person is also a big task and a big burden to everybody as well.
See, you are seeing many clients each day, right? Now, tell me few issues of these clients who actually come to you for curing or treating their depression, like depression out of marital relationship problems or love. Like, what is their triggering points?
On the whole, if I have to give like basic statistics or basic
Yes.
information, there are a section of clients who come to us stating that they have depression. We deal with all kinds of cases here. Because we are not a CDC, a Child Developmental Center, we don't take in a lot of child cases below the age of 15 or below the age of 10. So we usually signpost them to different CDCs in the city. When it comes to our specializations, at least for me, I deal with all kinds of cases. I'm yet to become a clinical psychologist, but I have others on board at my facility who deal with different specializations and different who have different clinical interests. And the maximum kind of cases that we have seen are related to stress,
Stress out of?
out of financial conditions mainly.
Ah.
When you mentioned marital problems, we have couples counseling which is available. So what we usually do is, depending on the situation of the person, either of the partners call us and they ask us. We ask them their budget, etc., and that's how we again signpost them to the correct, to the most appropriate say consultant on board. So we have dealt with couples, we have dealt with financial burdens, we have dealt with, say, parent-child therapy, where parents have problems with their children and children have problems with their biological
Oh.
parents. We've dealt with extramarital affair cases, childhood disorders, childhood traumas, eating disorders, anxiety disorders, mood disorders, personality disorders, you name it, everything, including, say, psychotic disorders. Divorce counseling is something that we also do. Depending on the case, we premarital counseling, marital, and divorce counseling. These are the three aspects for marital counseling that I would, say. We also deal with addictions. We deal with post-surgery trauma as well. So, suicidal tendencies, student-related stress, all of that we've dealt with, including anger management, pride and ego, medical illness-related trauma related issues, emotional turmoil, love failure, all these things we've dealt with, in large numbers. And when it specifically comes to medical post surgery trauma, some of us take it up because some of us were trained at different medical facilities. So we take up these cases. But when it comes to anything and everything related to mental health services, we have it all.
You have done an incredible work with cancer survivors and cancer victims, right? I heard that psychologists help critically ill patients to recover faster. Is that true?
So there is a branch of psychology and oncology, which is known as psycho-oncology, that exists in the world. And in India, there are about 5 teams which who are extensively part of the this particular field.
Okay.
And when it comes to, say, critically ill cases, see, when it comes to terminal cancer cases, we can't do much because we don't know if they will pass away in 5 days or 10 days or within 2 hours or anything. What we do when it comes to terminal cases is we can just ease the psychological pain that they have. just by
Okay.
talking to them, making them feel comfortable in the situation that they are in. We wouldn't say lose hope or not to lose hope. We just want to make them feel good about themselves. So, in terminal ill cases, we can do that. When it comes to critical cases, when I was part of a team, a research team, and when I was doing things on my own to, go help at a hospice with patients, from my personal and professional experience, what I would say is more than the client or more than the person suffering themselves, if we as psychologists are able to give some kind of moral support or some kind of, motivation for the extended family who is suffering with the patient, that is what will help the patient to recover faster.
Yeah.
Because for during a critical stage in their time, they would not want to listen to anyone except their loved ones.
Yeah.
Not just for cancer, but for any other form of illness, be it for TB or anything. If you're in the hospital, you would only want to, talk to a close friend or a family member. You don't want the doctor, you don't want the nurse coming and injecting you. You just don't want that. You just want to be left alone, right?
Yes.
So similarly, what I understand from personal or professional experience, as a psychologist, if we are expected to go talk to cancer patients, you should go talk, probably have a word or two, but, limit the conversation in order to make them feel comfortable and make sure that the entire family who's suffering with the case has the emotional and the moral support they require. So that's what I would say when it comes to cancer related cases. Because, if we up the spirits of the people who are suffering with the patient, it will help the patient feel more hopeful, and they will ignite some amount of self esteem and confidence in them to fight this cancer battle for
Yeah.
themselves.
Generally, if I tell someone that, to be healthy, stop smoking, or if I want someone to be healthy, I will ask them to have a healthy diet and good, physical fitness and stuff like that. If I'm asking you to suggest a method to keep my mental health healthier, what that would be, Aishwarya?
It is a very contradictory question to answer because even the fittest person on earth may suffer from some kind of problem.
Yeah.
There's no life without a problem, to be very honest. There's no
Yes.
concept of that, 100 anywhere. It's just a man made, concept.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to diet, fitness, lifestyle choices, and mental health, I would just segregate these things because primarily psychology is studied from three aspects. One is our genetics, we study the DNA, and we study the heredity aspects of each individual. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And the second aspect is the individual's cognition. We all have a mind of our own. And then the third is the environmental aspects. So, when I had initially touched upon the concept of biology being a major part of psychology, is what we talk about genetics now.
Yeah.
The famous nature versus nurture debate is what is taught to us in our initial days. So, when it comes to, say, trying to understand an individual or to give people, in general, I can tell people to, be surrounded by loved ones. That
Okay.
really helps. If you prefer being, alone and you think you can hustle better being alone, you do you, is what I would say.
Okay.
People who require relationships to work with, they should work with. When it comes to lifestyle, diet, fitness, these are all very personal and subjective matters for each individual. Now, for a war veteran, he may not be able to walk again. For a
Yeah.
sports person, if they have a hamstring injury or some other, injury, they may not be able to play again. That doesn't mean that, their fitness levels are bad or anything of that sort. So we can't generalize these things saying that a person who has a healthy body, a healthy lifestyle, a healthy diet is the person who is great. We can't say such things because we don't know what kind of problems he is facing. You might look fine from, the outside. For the world, you might look great, you might be the most attractive person, but at the back of the head, they might be having some tension, some stress, some triggering points that could trouble them throughout the day.
Yeah,
You
yes.
might look at a person who may look unhealthy for you, but will be the happiest person on earth. So it's completely dependent on the individual as to how they look at their mental health condition. To answer your question, I would say that, the concept of healthy lifestyle living and all is very subjective thing. What is healthy for us may be completely ridiculous for another part of the world and vice versa.
I mentioned that you are a filmmaker. So recently you have produced a film called Life of Three. This is a
Yeah,
wonderful film which have won many awards internationally. And
yeah.
and the main subject of this film is super interesting. Now my question to you on this is, how do you relate supernatural things or paranormal things with psychology?
Parapsychology is a complete different field of study that people study and work in. It's a recognized field of study in most parts of the world. And even in India, there are specified courses that are offered in northern India, northern Indian universities, North Indian universities. So when it comes to paranormal, supernatural aspects, see, I'm only a human being. I'm not a divine power or God herself to, specifically say that there is something, there is not something. Human belief and faith are two controversial yet very personal topics that one can discuss openly, making sure that the sentiments of the other person are not, hurt. So the idea of that is, see, when it comes to someone having, say, if they're hearing voices, or if they're speaking to somebody else, or if they're seeing things, it's usually known as delusions and hallucinations in psychological terms. But there are movies, I'll give you specific examples. There are movies which have been made on, supernatural aspects and things. One would be Bhool Bhulaiya, which
Yeah.
is the first version of Bhool Bhulaiya in Hindi, which was based off Chandramukhi, were made in Tamil and
South,
Telugu,
yeah.
and I think it had like a Malayali. I think it had a Malayali movie. I mean, a Malayalam movie, which was the first movie, or I think a Kannada movie. I'm not sure, but it stemmed somewhere from South India, and then
Yes.
it went to North India. So
Yes.
in that, Akshay Kumar plays the role of a psychiatrist, and he says that uska pada padhaya hua gyan is of no use.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He mentioned that the character of Aditya Srivastav, he mentions the fact that despite me knowing everything, nothing from a scientific perspective may work in the case's favor, in the patient's favor, is what
Yes.
he says to his acharya or the older man who's there. I don't remember his name, but and then they come up with this entire concept of exorcism, or they make it look like Vidya Balan has to go kill Shiny Ahuja, etc.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So for some people, and that sort of did the trick over there. So now, if you're possessed or you're not possessed, the concept of exorcism. Now, for instance, the Exorcist series, it mainly talks about the Christian faith and how an antichrist entity can be cured of the illness that it has. Like an anti-lord, like a devilish entity, can be cured. So you have certain exorcists who are there. So the idea of supernatural or paranormal beings is something that is again unknown to the human senses. Because see, we don't see it, we don't smell it, we can't feel it in our everyday. We don't see ghosts, we don't sit with them, or we don't chit chat with them, right?
Yes.
We are only told that these ghosts are evil entities who just want revenge, or they want some kind of sadistic pleasure with human beings, is
Yeah.
what we understand. So, in my opinion, it again boils down to your belief system. You have believers, you have non believers.
Yeah.
You can't be in a neutral zone where it says, I don't believe either. You will always have a believer, you will always have a non believer. There's no in between to this. So, if, like I'd mentioned, in say cultures like Indian culture, exorcism is a big aspect of,
Aspect
you know,
or a big problem?
not a big problem for many. Now, there is this. I actually watched this documentary on YouTube, Suman Garu, where they said that there's a Hanuman Mandir in Rajasthan.
Mm-hmm.
I believe people go there in the
Mm.
mornings and they have to vacate the area by before sundown.
Okay.
So before twilight, also before the sun, goes down, they have to vacate the entire place. Just like Bhangad Fort, that
Mm.
entire village
Mm.
and that area.
Mm.
Similarly, I don't remember the name of the Hanuman temple.
Mm.
So
Mm.
anyone who's possessed is taken there,
Okay.
and their possession goes away, is what the belief says. So
Okay.
people are not expected to drink water in that area. They're not expected to take the prasad out of the place. They
Okay.
know many people don't even eat the food there.
Oh.
So
Okay.
there's a Hanuman temple. So the idea is, if you chant the Hanuman Chalisa, or if you believe that, Lord Hanuman can help you get over this problem, for some people it helps.
Mm.
So we can't say that, you have to come to a psychiatrist, you have to take medication and then only it will work. Because for a scientist, they will only look at it from a scientific perspective.
Mm.
Because we have mainly done research, we have done clinical study, we have been working in this field and studying this particular field for a very long time.
Mm.
But for me, as an individual or as a professional, I say you do you. If you think going to an astrologer, doing some Bhut Bhagav mantra, going and getting a tantric involved in it, if that works, well and good. Because before these scientific systems came into power, we only had magic and they were magical beings. Or
Yes.
most cultures talk about these things. They talk about
Yes.
fantasy, they talk about myths, they talk about mythological stories that have existed, throughout history. So we can't completely erase that aspect of a supernatural entity or a paranormal activity taking place. What I would say is, if you are afraid of something that you don't know, don't go. Back in the day, we didn't have electricity, so it was, people never ventured out in the dark, because we don't know if we will encounter a snake, a scorpio, or another herd of goats and sheep, or some enemy who would want to kill you in the dark. When it comes to supernatural forces, paranormal entities being connected to psychology, I would, there are some believers and non-believers. So it's again completely up to the individual's choice as to how we take it.
This particular element is badly exploited. That is what I feel.
Everyone exploits everything. There's no concept of being self-sufficient, or being true to yourself or anything. Everyone is an opportunist.
I'm actually working on a YouTube video. Probably in a weeks of time, my video will be up and available for viewing. So
Okay.
that's about haunted elements in the world. So during the research, I was shocked because newspapers and many news articles covered them. But
Yeah.
what I fear is countries like India, not just India alone, there are also, other countries in the world where,
Hmm.
in the name of possession, people hurt the patient, like they beat, they scold, right? So they treat them very badly, and that really pains me a lot.
But what will you do if the entity starts beating you up instead or tries to kill you? Would you still empathize with the entity or the person who's trying to harm you? The concept of self-defense came because of that.
Yeah,
Or it stems due to the fear that you may not survive. So for your survival, or the concept, if we have to bring in Charles Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest, the concept is that it doesn't matter if the other person lives or dies. Have you lived or not is what matters here.
yeah,
It doesn't matter if you have limbs or not. If you've survived is what matters here, at least in today's world. The ideology that stems that, we must not hurt another person, these were part of the old world
yeah,
where, ancient cultures used to exist, ancient religions used to exist. You know, the thought processes were very different back in the day, and now it's very different. So again, when we talk about a possession, see, what is it that, we see in movies and TV shows is a very dramatic version of what could possibly exist.
yes,
Now, again, if you talk about a supernatural force, where we talk about things like God, we talk about, deities, we talk about devatas, we talk about, angels and all of that. Nobody has ever seen divine power. And
yes.
there is a saying that if we see divine power, we may not even survive,
Mm,
is what most cultures believe in. Similarly, when you see the devil or, when you see an evil entity, you may not survive.
survive.
Be
Yeah,
it good
yeah,
or bad, that concept itself does not, we can't absorb it. Just like, how, humans may not absorb nuclear power into their systems and we will perish. Similarly, we may not survive all of that we see and feel and hear. That's why people say he's gone mad.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
think someone is whispering in your ears and you feel threatened about your existence, it's unusual behavior for the society. Again, it stems from how the society sees it.
yeah,
Now, in some cultures, people completely disregard the concept of a ghost or an entity or anything. But cultures which have existed for more than 5,000 years, over there you will hear such stories. Folklore is another concept that people explore. Why is it that entities exist or they don't exist? It's very simple. If we try to go trouble someone, they will trouble us back. There's this case, Suman Garu. I don't know if you've heard of it. I've heard these, stories for a very long time. I believe somewhere on the Pune highway, if you're going with a group of friends, there is a chudel or there is like some kind of an entity who dresses up in a white sari and tries to lure people.
oh,
I don't know if you've heard of this. This is something like, everyone, like the ghost stories of our times. This was the first thing that was, told to us. But whenever I travel to Pune or that side, I never saw anything. So
oh,
I can't say that, there is something that really exists there
yeah,
until
yeah.
unless I see it.
Maybe
But
the highway became so busy that,
yeah, so maybe she's also not bothered. The concept is why do we fear something that is unknown to us? Because we are not equipped to handle something unknown that's coming our way. I know it may sound very odd to a lot of people when I say such things because see, supernatural entities, paranormal psychology, they go hand in hand because it's one field of study that psychologists take up after they have completed their masters. So some people who are interested in the occult arts from all parts of the world, they get into this. And the concept of white magic, black magic also comes from this, Bhakti and Shakti.
do you still believe tarot card and this chronic healing and stuff like that?
See, I still practice tarot cards, but I will not call it divination. I mean, it is a form of divination now, is what is widely told to everybody, or rather, fortune telling is what how people understand it. But when it was first introduced in an aristocratic family in Italy, back in the day. This was, I think, sometime in the 15th century. The first deck was known as the Visconti Forza. I'm so sorry if the pronunciation is bad, but
No
that's
problem.
how I read it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So this particular game of tarot was designed as a luxurious game, like a game of luxury for the aristocrats.
Okay.
Just like how we play chess
Yeah.
or poker
Relates.
nowadays.
Snooker.
It
Yeah.
was it was yeah. And after a certain point of time, because of the kind of say perspectives that the tarot offers, it was later associated with divination or fortune telling. But I completely disregard the concept that it is fortune telling because at the end of the day, it is our choices if we want to take up some path or not.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, tarot card reading just gives you a 360-degree perspectives on the kind of problems that you have. When it comes to healing, chakra healing, Reiki, pranic healing, any other alternative therapeutic technique that is used, see, many people resort to meditation because it helps them.
Yeah.
Many people resort to non-medical treatments because it helps them.
Yes.
Many people only go the English way, they only want allopathic medication. That helps them well and good. But as individuals, we will understand what our body requires, what it doesn't require. So
Hmm.
if you're drawn to a particular aspect of, healing, I would say go for it. I'm not the kind who would say, no, you have to first come to us, then you have to go to a psychiatrist, then you have to come back to us. Nothing of that sort. Because as a psychologist, you have to be very open minded and try to understand what kind of culture you come from, what is it that the society requires at this stage, and how is it that we can assist our society in, bettering ourselves for the future.
All right. Aishwarya ji, now I'm touching your personal profile. So you are a
Yeah.
daughter of a famous music composer, Sashi Pritam Garu,
Yeah.
and you are a singer. Tell
Yeah.
me what made you to take up psychology as profession?
So this is a very interesting question that I would love to answer. All these all these years, I thought I was very interested in this. I want to make a living out of it, etc. But it was very recent, I think probably last year, 2000, last year or in 2021, my father broke the news that he once had this idea that he wanted to be a psychologist or he wanted to do an MA in psychology.
Hmm.
And he told me this, what, 10 years, 12 years after I studied, got done with half my, degrees. So, I mean, he's very interested in many fields. And to be honest, I think he's one of the most learned people I've ever come across.
He is versatile.
And yeah, I think that way, yes. Because if you talk to him, you won't feel like he's just a music composer or talking about Saregamapa or Do Re Mi Fa.
Hmm.
You will not see that at all.
Yes.
You will see a human being who knows life and who knows how to make you feel comfortable. So, this particular line that I have gotten myself into, I think I have to attribute it to Papa. That empathy factor that I have, or the intuitive, powers that I get it from my father. The concept of helping somebody, I have seen my father help numerous people. I have seen my father help numerous animals
Yes.
in his lifetime. He still does it.
Yes.
And he's very, very adamant about it. You don't see him like, bark on social media. That's not what he does.
Yes.
But I have seen this on a very like on a minute to minute basis. I have seen the man in the last 29 years of my life, and I think somewhere maybe he told me this, literally he told me this last year, that he had this option that I should have, he had this interest towards psychology. So I think genetically it may have come that way from me, from him, I would say. And cognition wise, I would say I am. even just like him, the way you say that, versatility in my father, I think I have that in me as well. I don't want to be king of one trade. I mean, I want to be jack of all trades and king of none.
Yeah, and that is
So,
that is why you are a filmmaker, you are a singer, and you are a
yeah,
psychologist, and
it
you are a
gives me
business
great
lady as well.
pleasure.
Yes.
See, I knew I was not cut out for a corporate life, Suman Karu. I knew it in my bones that I can't do engineering or, go dissect frogs and become a medical doctor. I knew it in my bones when I had, given up chemistry and biology in the ninth grade because I had done IGCSE
Mm-hmm.
board. And then
Yeah.
I had done IBDP. So I knew it that I will not be able to do it. And even then, my dad thought I might get into, I might become an archaeologist, I might become a historian, I might just become an author, I might take up English. He was very, I think, concerned about what I would take up and what I would not take up.
Mm,
So he knew I might take up something that's very different from, what the rest of the crowd takes. I don't come from a film family
mm,
because the first generation is my father, the second generation is me.
mm,
I I have seen film sets, I have seen recording studios, I've seen our own recording studio, I've seen how the business works, and there's definitely a certain fascination to it because I practically live with the celebrity.
yes,
For me,
yes.
he's my father. I mean, to the world, he may be a celebrity for the world, but he's still my father. And the fascination that I had about this man was that this man does everything.
Yeah.
He treats people with equal amount of respect, be it a peon or a billionaire, it doesn't matter. And he's never taught these things to me.
For
I have
that matter,
always
not
seen
just people, his love is for the living, like it might be
great good. Yeah,
person or
he really
animal.
appreciates life. I've
Yes,
never
yes.
seen the man cry. Suman Garu, I've never seen him cry except one or two instances when we've lost a loved one or two. And I've never seen him cry. And he says every day is a new day. So we've got to help someone. So the reason why I took up psychology so vehemently was probably because of my father. Now I say it's only because of you that I'm this or that, you know, because I think he has done so many things in his life. And I think, see, people talk about role models, they talk about, how they appreciate their fathers, their mother figures, a celebrity. I have everything of that in my house.
Yeah.
My father wanted me to take up English. He wanted me to take up film. He wanted me to take up psychology as well because I was very certain about psychology.
And
So
you love it, right?
I really love it. I still have clients for tarot card readings. I still have clients who come in for, personal sessions. So the kind of people, so when it comes to severe psychiatric cases, there's a certain pattern that we deal with depending on the severity of the case. The non-mental health disorder cases who we deal with are the ones who come under the stress category, the umbrella term of stress category. So we try to navigate them. We try to boost their confidence. We try to, assess the situation. We try to give them different forms of, different perspectives and views that they could use. And things that work in their favor, they're very happy with it.
You know what? Basically, you are a multi-talented package, and Team Suman versus Human salutes you for that.
Thank you so much, Garu. You're very, very kind.
Aishwarya ji, I
Yeah.
have a last question for you, and I have this question to all my guests, whoever is coming on Suman versus Human, and you will definitely have no option to say no. You have to answer this.
Okay.
And the question is, what if you have superpowers in your hand to change something in this country? What that would be?
Oh, I would do a lot of things, not one or two. So when it comes to this particular question of yours, I would definitely do a lot of things. I mean, there's not one or two things that I would want to change, a lot of things that I would want to change. And being the largest democratic country in the world, I think we all exercise our powers as voters first, That's something that I would not change. But considering all the political manifestos and agendas in mind, I would say it doesn't matter who is ruling or who's not ruling, but we are we are going into this phase shift of a phase where technological advancements will keep increasing.
Mm.
Fresh air will decrease.
Yes.
The human lifespan has already come, from probably an average of say 75 to 80 now down to maybe below 60, if
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And I don't know the exact stats for this year, but it's just going down. The quality of life, the standard of living is going down for everybody.
Yeah.
So I watched this documentary about how Indore became the cleanest city in the entire country. And
Wow.
even till date, nobody litters the place. Any
Mm.
street. You go to any street, I've personally been to Indore, and they did that to fix a landfill problem, which was probably, if I'm not wrong, which was occupying over 10 acres of land in a prime area.
Oh.
I don't know if it was 10 acres or more, but when they managed to sort all of that out, they were able to, what do you call it? They were able to, make space for a recreational center, if I'm not wrong. And second, they sensitized everyone to live a clean life. And as a community, as a city, residents of the city, they have back to back had that title of being the cleanest city for a very long time now.
Wow.
So Hyderabad used to be a very clean city back in the day. I will not blame any political party for, dirtying the city or the state for that matter, because that's not what I'm trying to do, or, trying to tarnish anyone's image. But if you come up with this aspect of, cleaning up the mess that we have made,
Mm.
we will leave a brighter future for the generations to come by. Imagine if the whole country starts to clean up all the streets, we will have more land. We will have
Yes.
fresh, clean air.
If you have superpowers in your hand, you will be making India more cleaner and greener, right?
Cleaner and greener, because these are the two green aspect. We only have 20% of forest land in our in
Yes.
our
Yes.
country now.
How will you react if I tell you that India is world's dirtiest land?
It is the world's dirtiest land. I'm not saying this out of spite, Suman Garu,
Yes.
because I'll tell you, I had read this information that they had, so back in the day, or the previous governments and the current government, I don't know, they have spent to the tune of 60,000 crores to clean up Ganga.
Mm.
If I'm not wrong, I'm so sorry if the statistics are wrong, or if my information is wrong. People can look it up on Google. They spent to the tune of over 60,000 crores Indian rupees to clean up Ganges, and they could not do anything. One COVID hit and it cleaned itself. The
Yes.
birds, now I see birds every day. There was a point when we didn't even have crows. Forget about crows,
Yes.
even
Yes.
regular small birds, lovebirds, menas, totas, or whatever you call them.
Yes. Yes.
Now I see birds. I see that people are more conscious about what can happen to them. I'm not
Yes.
saying that just to make somebody conscious about it, that, we have to have like an outburst, a biochemical war like COVID to, put some sense into people's brains and, play with their fears or anything. What I'm
Yes.
saying is, when we are younger, when we are growing as children, if parents can, come up with ideologies to make the child a very mindful person, they will grow up to be very mindful people, and they will also give birth to mindful kids, and who will continue to do that.
Yes.
What has happened, right? So
Correct.
superpowers is to, because see, we don't have a planet B or a C or a D. The second thing that I would do is promote arts and culture,
Mm.
because every child is special and everyone has one skill that is unique to them,
Mm. Mm.
be it an artistic ability or a technical ability. So we
Yes.
must let them bloom. Like, we must
Yes.
let every child bloom to their best glory. We must let every adult have, the life of their dreams.
Mm. Yes.
That's what I would actually aspire to, have. I'm not saying let's become a communistic nation, let's have only capitalism rule, let's do it in a very socialistic way. Take the best of all three theories and make the best of what you can. A superpower would only to be for the greater good. What will I do doing anything else?
I wish all those things come true soon.
Thank you.
And it was great, 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 lovely talking to you, Aishwarya ji. Thank you so much
Thank
for giving me
you. It
this
was
opportunity to host you on Suman versus Human.
Thank you so much. I'm highly obliged. And I really appreciated, you reaching out to me and asking me. I felt very privileged to come on your show.
Do you like to give out any contact details, or do you want me to put the link to your company in the description so that people can connect to you and get the counseling job done?
Yeah, I'll also share the details with you.
Yes.
So the email address is info@mentalhealthservices acro.com.
Hmm.
The phone number is +91 91004 23015. So that is the clinic's number
Hmm.
and the email. We are located in Hyderabad, Banjara Hills, road number 12 area. And I will also share all the details for you to put it in the news scroll section.